Welcome to the recording of the online gathering of Asia Pacific Impact Lawyers, which took place on 12th of August 2021. This conversation features Stephen Moe, Kate Hodson, and Amrut Joshi.
All right, well, kia ora, everyone. Welcome to this event. I'm really pleased to be able to welcome you, and I'm really looking forward to the panel that we have to discuss the question, what does it mean to be an impact lawyer in Asia Pacific? So we've got a great panel of Kate and Amrut, and we're going to get into their stories in a minute. But I just wanted to start with a couple things. The first is we'd really love for this to be interactive with you. So I know that as we're going through the panel and hearing these journeys and stories, you're probably going to have questions or you're going to have observations. So we would really encourage you to use the chat function. I know we all know how to use chat these days with Zoom, so feel free to type in any questions that you've got for the panelists, any observations, any reflections as they're speaking, maybe something from your journey. Also, if you think of resources that might help others, feel free to type and let us know what is it that's helped you. So we're going to get underway now. My name's Stephen Moe, and I'm a partner in a law firm in New Zealand called Parry Lawyers. And I'm the chair of the esela group here in Asia Pacific, which is the Impact Lawyers group. So it's a real pleasure to welcome you here. And one of the things that when we were planning this was that we really wanted this to be a chance for us to reflect on our journeys. So just before we get into our panelists, just briefly on my own journey, you can hear that I have an accent. So I've lived in multiple countries, and I started my career in New Zealand, and then I worked for an international law firm, Norton Rose Fulbright, in London, Tokyo, and Sydney for 11 years. So I'm now based here in New Zealand, but that's really a journey for me of impact that's happened over the last 6 years, and a shift that's happened from working where I did to what I do today. And one of the keys for this session is we really want to center in on two stories, two life journeys when it comes to the law, and thinking about what is it that's been catalysts, what is it that's shaped people in their journeys, and what can we learn from it? How is this practical for each of us? So we're going to hear from Kate and Amrut. So Kate, I'm going to start with you, if that's okay. We would love to find out a little bit about your journey. If you could just describe where you are right now, and then also describe a little bit about your background and what it's been like for you to go on this journey of that word we call impact.
Absolutely. Thanks very much, Stephen, and hello to everyone. I'm sitting here in Hong Kong, where I've been based for about 11 years now. I was actually initially born in Hong Kong, spent some years in the UK before coming back here 11 years ago. So I'm a partner at a firm called Ogier, and my work is focused around investment funds. And the pivot or shift that's taken place in my life in recent years is really trying to focus around this concept of sustainable investing, which includes impact investing. And I will talk a little bit about how I got to this place. So I actually started off looking to become a psychologist, and I studied psychology. And while I was at university, I met someone there who was actually trying to help people in the US get off death row, and I was really inspired by the work she was doing. And I thought, actually, psychology is not for me. I'm going to become a lawyer, and I'm going to help people that way. I got into a scheme with Alan Overy, so they helped me convert to a lawyer that paid for my tuition for 2 years, and I started working there. And I very much got on, I suppose, a conveyor belt of the corporate commercial world. But it was a fantastic experience because the learning there was amazing. I worked with some really incredibly bright lawyers, and I'm very grateful for that journey, because I think it's allowed me to be in a position where I can actually use my skills today to do something which for me brings me a little bit more purpose, I would say. So I worked as a finance lawyer, and then transitioned to become a funds lawyer. I've been a funds lawyer for about 11 years. And it was probably around 5 years ago, I would say, that I started sort of questioning what was my purpose, what could I do, how could I sort of feel like I was making the most of my skills, but also, doing something for the planet. And initially, I couldn't see how I was going to do that with the work that I was doing. I started focusing on charitable work that I could do outside of the office. But as you know, we spend a huge amount of our time in the office. And so it wasn't really enough. I think I watched the film A Plastic Ocean, which is brought together by Craig Leeson, who's actually based in Hong Kong. And that was a catalyst that had been brewing for a few years, as I mentioned. And I thought, this is enough. I really feel that I need to do something. I started organizing some events. I started going to a lot of events and educating myself. And I became increasingly gripped by the situation specifically around climate change, and also by the realization about the importance of the role of private capital in terms of finding solutions. It really struck me how it was clear that government, monies through government and philanthropy was just not going to get us there, and we really needed to reorientate public and private funds in a more sustainable manner. And so I suddenly saw a possible role for me in that, in a very small cog in this ecosystem, but to shift and I guess reorientate the work that I was doing. I really wanted some credibility around that. I didn't think I could just read around the subject and walk in. And so I decided to undertake a master's. And I remember going to our global managing partner. So obviously I'm a partner, I'm responsible for associates in my team, for financial targets. And I thought, how am I going to make this work to do a master's, which I wanted to do full time because I didn't want to be studying forever. How was I going to make that work? And I was actually really, really nervous taking this proposition to our global managing partner. And his immediate response was, and I hope he doesn't mind me sharing this, was, you've made my day. And I just thought, wow, that's incredible and extremely lucky to have that kind of leadership at a firm. And so we sort of set about working how it was going to be possible to continue running my practice, but also doing a full-time master's. Anyway, safe to say we made it work. I now have a master's in energy and environmental law. And with that, I've been focusing on setting up our sustainable investing and impact funds practice. I've set up a consultancy, which sits alongside our firm. We've hired some wonderful people into that consultancy. So I now sit side by side with experts in the impact and sustainability world. And we've also started the journey internally for our firm. We pulled together a pioneering, audacious committee, we call it the APAC, and we started brainstorming how we were actually going to help the firm itself improve its position from an environmental perspective. That has culminated this year with us appointing a head of sustainability, an expert with a huge amount of experience under her belt to come and help the firm on its journey. And I've been heavily involved in that process as well. So I don't want to go on for too long, but that gives you a bit of an oversight of where I am with my work. And I suppose lastly, one point is I joined WWF Hong Kong. So I joined their finance and audit committee, which was with my legal background. And I've also joined the board in the last year as well. So it's been really amazing to work with WWF and sort of see how they operate in the conservation world. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you so much, Kate. That's awesome to hear your story. I really appreciate it. And what we'll do is come back to some of the things that you've mentioned. I'd love to learn a little bit more. It sounds like you've got lots of balls in the air juggling there with different initiatives. And so that will be a great thing to talk about in a minute. I'm going to turn to Amrut in a second. Just so for those who've joined just as we've been getting going, what we're doing is hearing from Kate and Amrut a little bit of their journey, and then we're going to be having a panel discussion among the three of us. And then we're going to be turning to any questions that all of you type in the chat. I don't see any yet, but I'm sure that they will come. And then after that, there is going to be a chance to network and get to know each other a little bit, because we're really keen that this isn't just sort of a static video presentation. There will be a chance for you to get to know others. So after the panel, after the Q&A, there'll be a chance for you to interact and answer some questions and have a chat with each other. But over to you, Amrut. We'd love to hear a bit of your journey. So can you describe where are you right now? And yeah, what's it been like on your journey towards impact?
Thank you, Steve. And thank you, Kate, for that rather inspiring journey as well. I must confess, everything that's happened to me over the course of the last 8 years has largely been, serendipitous. I still can't, with any conviction, say that, I'm doing this because I have a purpose in life. But I think I would say that this journey for me has been driven largely by exposure to some really fascinating individuals and organizations working in the impacts sector. And I think they're the real heroes. And I think as I've got more and more involved with them, I just find it very stimulating to be working with them and helping people who are solving some of the most pressing challenges that humanity faces today. So it's slightly different from Kate's journey and your journey as well, Steve. I spent the first 8 years of my career working at a couple of the larger law firms in India. And even those larger firms in India are not operating at a global scale of what, say, Norton Rose Fulbright would be, or any of the larger firms outside India are. At least at that point in time, they were not. They're progressively growing bigger. But what that also gave us was an opportunity to be generalist lawyers. And so when I set out on my journey as a lawyer, firstly, I was largely a transactional corporate commercial lawyer. I started my current firm, GameChanger Law Advisors, in 2011. And it wasn't until 2013 that I actually had my first meaningful exposure to the social impact community. I just happened to meet a client who was working for one of India's larger foundations operating in the education sector. And she made a request to do some work on a pro bono basis. And there began my journey. I think one thing led to another. I got introduced by one of the firm's anchor clients, who was an angel investor, to what was then a young social impact consulting firm in India. And they were at that point in time a team of 10 professionals. Today, they've grown to be one of the largest impact consulting firms, with 200 plus professionals in India. And so when I started work with them, I was doing 8 hours of work for them every month. Over the last 8 years, that's grown to the firm doing around 25 to 30 hours of work for them every month. And through them, we actually get to see the whole spectrum of players in the impact space. So we ended up working with impact investors from the US and UK primarily, but also from some of the other regions in the world who are investing in for-profit social enterprises. We work with domestic incubators and accelerators who have identified startups in specific sectors, education, healthcare, and agriculture, to be precise. Now we are doing some work in the energy space as well. So and I think what that did was it actually, through this journey, particularly over the last 8 years, it's exposed me to a wide range of legal frameworks and instruments. So, you get, as a lawyer, purely speaking, as a lawyer, as a professional, you get to see a wide range of legislations and how they impact organizations on a day-to-day basis, practically speaking. And India is a very, very challenging, country for not-for-profit organizations to operate in. There's a bunch of regulations around how you can accept foreign contributions. It's the only country which, I think, to my knowledge, has mandated corporate social responsibility by way of a legislation. So and there's a bunch of compliance obligations that come with it. But what you also end up realizing is it's not only about compliance, but it's also about structuring meaningful collaborations between investors and social enterprises, enabling access to finance. So it's not also only about investments, but it's also about for what purpose that finance is being put to. Where is it being deployed, and who is it actually reaching as well? So yeah, I think I'd just stop here. But it's been a fascinating journey, something that was unexpected, didn't really plan for it, in any deep manner. But as I've gone deeper into the sector, there've been some exposure to some fascinating global networks. This community of lawyers, we started work on it in June last year, thanks to Sarah and Ziwei and the team that put this together as well. So this is one of those, and the other two networks that I've been exposed to, which have contributed to me going deeper into this sector, is the AVPN, the Asian Venture Philanthropy Network. I've just come off a fellowship, which actually exposed me to principles of impact investing. So as a lawyer, to learn something outside the law was also fascinating. And I'm also working with this organization called Stanford Seed, where I end up providing consultancy services for organizations across the world on, on legal and business issues as well. And yeah, that's where I'll stop. I don't want to go on about this, but that's a broad overview of where I come from and what I've been doing.
Oh, that's great, Amrut. Thank you so much. And I think we all have our unique stories, and we all come from different backgrounds. And that's the purpose of this, is to hear these different stories, to all be from different backgrounds, different firms, different, histories, but then realize that there are things that we probably share in common. And I just think, technology is amazing, isn't it? That here we are able to connect across Asia Pacific in a really meaningful way. So Kate, I might ask you to come back and join us as part of the panel. And we're just going to kick off. We want to keep this quite informal. So we're going to probably interrupt each other, bounce ideas around. But Kate, I'd love to hear from you. I think all of us are on a journey. Some of us have maybe progressed a little bit further than others. And some of us are at the very early stages, even thinking, probably clicked and signed up to this, not even knowing what we were signing up for. And I'd just love to hear a little bit more from your story, that initial meeting that you had when you went and you asked that question. Can you describe maybe a little bit more about what you were feeling as you went into that meeting, and maybe what gave you the courage to go ahead and have that meeting? Because that's quite a big call to go and say, I want to go do my master's. Can we talk about this? Yeah, absolutely. And actually, it relates a little bit to this question that I've seen pop up about what is an impact lawyer, because that's a very good point. We're on a journey. I mean, if we're saying an impact lawyer is someone who does 100% impact work, then I'm probably not an impact lawyer, but I'm a lawyer who is trying to have impact in some respects. And so, yes, for me, when I was going to speak to this global managing partner, I was thinking exactly that. I'm working in a firm which is a traditional law firm, advising on financial, corporate, commercial matters. What is the place for this work? Is he going to see the business angle? Is he going to believe in it? Is he going to think that because I raise it, that I'm no longer committed to this firm and what its purpose is? And so these are the sorts of things, are they going to think I'm having a sort of a crisis and that I'm not going to be sticking around? So those was going through my mind. And also I didn't really see, to be honest, exactly how it would work. I think COVID has shown us more than anything that we are fixed in this sort of mindset of how things can work, and it's not going to be possible to do other things. And when you actually just go forward and step forward, you can prove otherwise. And that's kind of what happened here, that they threw their weight behind making it work. And so it was possible. That's interesting, and it's encouraging, I think, for all of us probably. I have a similar story in that I work in probably a medium-sized law firm. So we've got about 65 people in our firm. And when I first started, there wasn't a practice area just devoted to this. But they had acted for many charities in the past. And so it was really about framing it in a way that made business sense, but also spoke the language of what we were already doing. And so for me, it started with saying, well, we have a number of charity clients. Actually, there's a whole world there. Did you know about this word called social enterprise, for example? And it's been about expanding what was already there, maybe as a seed, and then growing that into something else. Yeah, but I'm curious about the question that's in the chat there. What is an impact lawyer? Amrut, I'd be keen for your definition. What do you think? Because the person there says, I need to ensure I'm not an imposter. I think we all suffer from imposter syndrome. So what do you think to that question?
That's, I recently interacted with Clarice, on the Impact Investment Fellowship. So hi there, Clarice. On the question of, what kind of impact are we making as a lawyer, or are we impact lawyers? I think it's a tough one, and it's something that I'd like to believe that through the advisory work that we've done or the representation that we've done, it has had a positive impact, on the community of clients, organizations, individuals that each one of us has possibly serviced. But I think one of the things that I also learned in the course of the fellowship was everything in the impact space boils down to impact measurement. And as yet, I don't believe there is a framework which can be universally applied within the legal community to say, this is the impact that we've had. Of course, pro bono work is, the number of hours that a firm dedicates to pro bono work is one possible measure. But, I don't believe pro bono work represents all of the work that is being done for the impact community. And I think so that is also a common misconception that I initially had to dispel when I went over to, explain to people why I was building an impact-focused law practice as well. But I think the broader question on, do I believe I am an impact lawyer? I believe I'm a lawyer who works with impact organizations. They're the real heroes who end up actually making an impact by moving capital to people and communities that need it. We are enabling them, and I guess as long as we are enablers or catalysts of change in that sense, we can still look back at what we do with a certain amount of pride and purpose as well.
Yeah. No, I love that answer. And you used a word there that I often use. So I'm going to highlight that one. And then I'm going to go to you, Kate, for your thoughts about any images of what an impact lawyer is. But you said the word catalyst. And I like to think that in some ways, we've all done a lot of study, right? Years of study to get to this position. How are we going to use the knowledge that we have? How are we going to be catalysts for the clients to achieve their goals? And what I find is when I think of it in that way, it really helps me. So I might have a client come in and they want to set up a new initiative of some kind. Maybe it's charitable, maybe it's non-charitable, but let's just say as an example, they want to help children in a certain area who are suffering with poverty and lack of education and things. I like to think of it that I can't help the 1,000 children, but I can help the one person who can help the 1,000 children. And it's really then being that catalyst and helping them to get to where they want to go. And for me, it's an interesting question about impact, because I act for a lot of very wealthy clients as well. In fact, many of my clients would be some of the wealthiest clients in our firm, because sometimes the impact-focused people have succeeded in business, and now they're doing something that also wants to combine impact. So for me, it hasn't been a case of just, well, this is completely pro bono now. It's been a case of balancing having the pro bono and impact that way, but then also having the, the profit with purpose model as well. So for me, an image, I guess, is being a catalyst. How can we as lawyers come in and add value to our clients? But Kate, I'd be curious for you, is there any images that you've got that you come back to that's helpful that others might be interested in?
Yeah, I mean, I think lawyers, no question, are in a position to deliver impact. They can support transformational change. We push legal boundaries to protect social and environmental issues, and we're capable of helping with innovation. I think when it comes to structuring mechanisms that, I mean, I don't know if you're looking at the financial space where I'm working, then we've got a whole load of new mechanisms for directing capital in a more sustainable manner. And lawyers have been integral to putting together documentation that provides investors with confidence that that there are kind of outcomes, positive social and environmental outcomes to those investments. So we have a role to play. I actually don't think we even need to get too caught up about whether we have deserved or earned this label or not. Really, we have a purpose. We just get on with things. And there are always going to be there are different people in this this whole ecosystem who are doing all different types of impact, and we all have our role to play. And I think part of what's changing is that this is a game for everyone. Everyone needs to step up and get involved. And it's exciting being in a place which has not traditionally been associated with impact, and seeing how we can make a difference there. And so, yeah, that's the angle for me, because I'm not a human rights lawyer. I'm not doing this day to day, but I do see a role for me in this sort of, as I call it, the whole ecosystem.
That's awesome. I love that answer, and particularly the idea that this is a growing area, because I know the fact that we've got the number of people listening and interested just shows that it's growing. And I love the idea that we can encourage each other across borders, because sometimes it can feel like you're just there on your own, but actually there's a whole cohort of people. So thanks everybody for networking, getting to know someone new maybe. It's going to be impossible to go around and hear from everyone about every amazing thing that was discussed in your little breakouts there. But I wonder, Siwei, do you mind sharing from your group maybe a thought or a highlight of something that stood out to you? And behind the scenes, Siwei is doing a lot of work in organizing things and is really involved. So thank you as well for all that you're doing. Over to you.
Not at all, and thanks a lot for a great panel discussion just now. So my room, we have Clarice and myself, who maybe I'll just share a little bit about her and shockingly how the common path that we share. So essentially, we've both been very law and policy focused, perhaps even right after we graduated. We both went to law school, we both became lawyer for a short while, litigators, but then very quickly she went into policy, I went into journalism. But yeah, like we've both come to a point where we realize with the broader impact that we want to do, law is definitely a very, very crucial tool and very important, and we are both working with it right now. I'm back in a private practice, but she is now heading actually impact fund based in Cambodia. So yes, I think there are definitely common points and common understanding of what law can do, even though we are in very different roles. So we have already said we need a much longer conversation beyond this.
Stephen, I'll leave it to you to close things up.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Sarah. I mean, we're just finishing up now, but I'd like to ask Michael Ryland. So he's also involved behind the scenes and doing a lot of amazing work. So Michael, would you be able to share what your group maybe talked about, just so that we get an impression back?
Hi, Stephen. Yeah, happy to do so. No, we had actually a really interesting chat. We had Bruce Tang and Kamor-san in the group with me. And Kamor-san is not a lawyer. He's interested in the impact group from an ESG perspective. working within a corporate and being concerned about ESG issues. And I know it was some themes I think are really significant for the sort of work we're doing, which in that it's the pressure of compliance, the need for compliance, and the fact that there is so much work that's been done in Europe that is driving a lot of the compliance metrics that then is globally, and certainly in some of the case of Kamura-san was talking about in his company, requiring them to be able to understand and to be able to respond. And that involves not only the sort of the learnings within the accounting and the IT side and so forth within the company, but also on the legal side, and pulling that information together. So it's a very good example of sort of the drivers that are getting an opportunity for that the legal input. The other side I thought was interesting was Bruce was chatting about his own journey through initially private practice, large law firm practice, through banking, and then into academia, working at Hong Kong University, and how the looking for opportunities to get involved. So getting involved sort of from the banking side, sort of project finance work that would create opportunities, or looking at clean tech, or looking at other forms like that. And at the same time, that sort of tension that the panelists are talking about with some of the difficulties when you also have to do things like a forestry IPO or act for oil and gas companies, and how do you fit that in within the sort of your impact purpose, and how academia has an advantage that you can be much more policy related, and so you don't quite have that sort of tension, but you pursue in a different way. So it was very interesting just in terms of different streams of way people get involved in impact practice.
And by the way, it was Brian, Michael.
Oh, sorry, Brian. Sorry. Yeah.
Australian Bruce.
Australian Bruce, yeah, that's right.
Oh, that's awesome. Nice. Well, it's great. I mean, it's obviously a short little intro in terms of getting to know each other. But I think if you look along there, like, I just love seeing all your faces as well. You know, like, there's people out there who are each of us trying to do some good in the world. And I feel encouraged by this session. Just to finish off, there's a couple things to tell you. We're going to send an email after this, which will have some links to different things. I'd encourage you to think about lawyers who you know that you could then forward it on to and say, hey, you should check this out. I mentioned before the LinkedIn group, which there will be another link in the email that we send. We're really trying to build up a community here, but it is only so good as each of you being willing to share with others and invite them in. This is relatively new. We've been going for probably about a year in terms of planning and doing things. And we do have big plans to continue to grow and expand this to bring in more people across Asia Pacific. As part of that, we have a journal that we're currently working on, and we would actually welcome submissions and thoughts from you. You maybe would like to write an article. Maybe there's a topic about this, you know, what does it mean to be an impact lawyer? Maybe there's something you could share about the work that you're doing. We would love to have contributions from the community. So in the email, there will be information about how you can do that. And yeah, I think the last thing is just to thank you so much for attending. Thank you in particular to Kate and Amrut for sharing. I think we all really appreciated hearing the personal journeys of what you've been doing and going through, because I think each of us probably relates to aspects of what you're doing. The other thing is that we've been recording this. So if you want to go back and watch it again, we will be putting it up on a website. So you'll be able to go back, and you'll also be able to share this with others. So thank you particularly to Sarah and Sue and Michael and others on the organizing team who've pulled this together. There's obviously work behind the scenes that goes on, and we really appreciate all of the efforts there. And thank you all for attending. See you next time.
Thank you.
Thanks, Stephen.